This happened when I was 16 years old. My best friend, Tony, wanted me to come over for the night since his parents would be gone all weekend. I rode my bike over and put it in his backyard before letting myself in through his back door. We played basically every video game he had, from FIFA all the way to Call of Duty, with popcorn and other junk food spilled out all over the floor. As the night progressed, we moved from video games to watching half a movie and getting bored. Then we moved on to prank phone calls around 10 o'clock. Tony made a few calls to different pizza places. When it was my turn, I just dialed a few random numbers hoping to get someone at their house. On, say, my fourth attempt, I finally reached somebody. A guy with a deep and rough voice picked up, answering with a yeah instead of a hello. Tony's laughing in the background made me stumble with my words mid-sentence, ultimately cracking up into laughter. I had never done a prank call, so I was pretty bad at it. The guy on the other end was silent. I regained a straight face and tried to continue with the call. It went something like this. Hello, sir. Would it be all right if I borrowed one of the wheels from your car? What's your name, kid? My name is Dave. Really? You sure it's not Tony? It hit me like a brick. I looked up at Tony, whose face was noticeably full of fear. I hung up the phone, not wanting to be on the line with whoever that was for another second. Tony. Who the hell was that? I asked him. I don't know. Does your caller ID display your name or something? No, it shows my dad's name. We hopped on the computer and did some research trying to figure out how it was possible to get someone's name through their phone number. It didn't make sense how he could get Tony's name so quickly. He was way too young at the time to be on any of those personal information sharing websites. We ended up asking the question on Yahoo Answers, since no one had a similar experience. The question turned up no answers. I suggested he call his dad, but he said he wasn't supposed to have anybody over for the weekend, so he didn't want to call. We planned on sleeping in the living room, so we just resumed watching what we hadn't finished from earlier. Right after the phone call had left my mind, me and Tony looked at each other when we heard his front storm door opening, and the doorknob to the front door began to turn. It turned about halfway before the lock restricted it. Tony turned off the TV and I went over to the window to see who it was. I spread the blinds open. There was a tall guy standing outside. He noticed the blinds moving and turned to look at me. I practically threw the blinds back into place. Me and Tony hid in the kitchen listening for any more noises. We heard the sound of the gate to the backyard opening as it was right outside the kitchen window. Damn it, I said, I forgot to close the back door. Tony urged me to run and shut it. I made it to the hallway leading to his back door and froze. There was a silhouette standing outside the back door. I don't think he noticed me, but he was definitely looking into the house. He opened the door and stepped inside. I tiptoed to the kitchen and motioned for Tony to follow me upstairs. We made it to his room as quietly as possible, pulling the door shut gently to avoid making any noise. We crawled under his bed. He had a sheet covering the bottom of his bed, so you couldn't see anything under it unless you actually moved it to the side. We could hear the doors downstairs opening, one by one, each one getting closer to the stairs. Thumps finally started up the stairs. He was right outside the door now. The door to the room opened. I could hear Tony's breathing. It was too loud. Footsteps moved over to the closet, and then the closet opened. I could hear the coat hangers being slid around. As the fabrics of the jackets and coats rubbed against each other, the footsteps moved over to the bed and stopped. I felt like my heart was about to explode out of my chest. Tony's breathing was still too loud. I had to cover his mouth with my hand. Nothing but silence in the room now. We lay still for so long, I almost thought he wasn't even in the room anymore. I moved my hand away from Tony's mouth and whispered in his ear, "You think we can make a run for it?" He was about to answer when the most disturbing, memory-haunting scream I'd ever heard filled my ears as Tony was violently dragged out from under the bed. I crawled out and saw him struggling with a man. I desperately looked around for anything to use as a weapon. I settled on a screwdriver sitting on his nightstand. I hurried over to the man and drove the screwdriver into his back. He let go of Tony as he let out a scream of agony, giving us time to get the hell out of the house. Running out on the road would give away our position too easily. and it would take too long to get to his neighbor's house. We dove for the tree line in the woods and took cover behind a bush. Watching the house, the back door opened as the man stepped outside, looking around the backyard. He then looked out to the woods. I felt his eyes pass me as he scanned through the tree line. It seemed that it was too dark for him to see us. Then he turned his head back in our direction. I ducked behind the bush. "He's coming." "What?" "Dude, get up. We gotta run." He was right. The man was approaching us fast. How could he have seen us? We ran through the woods with the leaves crunching under us, giving away our position. Tony tripped over something. I crouched down with him, hoping we had run far enough. Not even 15 seconds later, oncoming footsteps from the direction we were running from came fast. They slowed down only 2 trees away from us as we lay face down in the leaves. Terrified. Moments later, the footsteps took off in another direction. We waited until we could no longer hear them and took off back in the direction of the house. While running over the sound of leaves crunching and my heavy breathing, I could swear I hear leaves crunching from behind us. We made it back to his back door, into his house, and this time remembered to shut and lock the back door. We were now able to call the police. Tony stayed on the line with them while I patrolled the back windows, making sure nobody was out there. It was so dark, though, I couldn't see anything. So I did something that seemed stupid today. I turned on his backyard lights, and immediately in the distance, over by the woods, I saw him standing in front of a big tree. He turned off back into the woods and disappeared out of sight. That was the last time me or Anthony ever saw him. I would be lying if I told you we heard the occasional knocks at our windows, or something cliché. No. That was it. 5 years have passed and nothing has happened. Do I wonder if it was somehow linked to the prank call? Maybe. Does it make sense? Not really. But, yeah, this was the story of how me and my still best friend Tony almost died during a break-in.
I've had a couple of stalkers. The one that freaked me out the most was in another country, and we never even met in person. We met on a website for pen pals. He lived in South Africa, but our conversations were great. He developed feelings really, really fast. I liked him very much in the beginning, and our relationship went to another level. Fast. We made plans to meet, etc., but I was concerned with some things I considered red flags confirmed by my friends and family. I decided to back off a bit. He didn't like that at all. I was super beta, trying to keep the peace without hurting or losing my friend. I started lying to him, out of fear. He'd interrogate me for hours about where I was going, who I was with. If I went to a party, he'd ask if I slept with anyone, and then say he'd kind of hoped I had, so I could tell him how it was. It was getting to be too much. I was no longer interested in him romantically at this point, but I would still pretend, because I was afraid of him. In the meantime, I met and fell in love with my current boyfriend, who is absolutely wonderful. But my stalker was obsessed with everything about our budding relationship and wouldn't leave me be. I finally realized that my stalker made me feel awful and that I should not be involved with someone who I was afraid of. I told him I didn't want to hear from him ever again. He ignored me. My boyfriend contacted him and told him to leave me alone. He tried to interrogate my boyfriend about the nature of our relationship, but he shut him down. I blocked him on everything. I realized that he was still reading my blog, so I deleted the whole thing. He made new email accounts and Facebook accounts constantly. He relentlessly Googled me and my boyfriend to the point that our names were among the top searches on multiple search engines. When he got no response, he started sending my boyfriend sexy pictures of me that I had sent the stalker. That was a big mistake. I was mortified, but since I'd been 100% honest with my boyfriend, it didn't break us up. But my boyfriend was obviously upset and disgusted. We never responded to anything he sent. To my knowledge, he still creeps on us, but after that episode, everything mostly stopped. I know he's thousands of miles away, and I've had stalkers who were in my immediate area, but he still scares me the most. When I was in my final 2 years of high school, I would get tutored in math by a guy we'll call Jerry. Jerry was at least 60 years old and worked for a tutoring center. I would see him 2 afternoons a week for 30 minutes each. He seemed like a very lonely guy, never married, no kids, and, from what I could tell, very few friends. And I felt a bit sorry for him. I was always really nice to Jerry, and to avoid having to do math work, I would just ask him questions and try start a conversation. All was well when I finished high school, and that was that. About a year later, my best friend's younger brother started getting tutored by Jerry as well, and one day, when dropping my friend's brother off, I said, "Say hi to Jerry from me," as he got out the car. About a week later, I got a letter in the mail. It was from Jerry. He was saying how he had really liked me and that he was now tutoring Joe, my friend's brother, and was excited when he mentioned I said hi. He really took this the wrong way, and in the letter basically confessed the feelings he had for me, and he was so glad I felt the same way. He said some very creepy things in the letter about how I looked good in my uniform, and he always wanted to tell me, but didn't want to get in trouble. I told my parents about the letter, and they approached the tutoring center and told the owners. He ended up getting fired for the letter and also for accessing personal information of clients for him to send the letter. About a week later, I started getting flowers at my doorstep, and they would then be followed up with text messages to my phone saying, "Hope you like the flowers, and give me a call if you want to get coffee." My parents took all this to the police, who then got in contact with Jerry. Not sure what exactly was said, but I've never heard from him since.